The ideal for Christian communities is for everyone to be seen as valuable and essential to the community. Unfortunately, churches don't always live up to this idea when it comes to autistic people. One of the reasons for this is that in church there are many different sensory stimulations, and this often causes people with autism to struggle and at times be treated with hostility. For most churches, music, a sensory experience, is a fundamental part of their worship. Music has also been seen to benefit those with autism, as it can be a form of communicating emotion where words are not necessary. With both of these in mind, we explored the role of music for autistic worshippers in engaging with the worship service and more broadly their own spirituality. This research also highlights what autism may be able to teach the Christian community about music in places of public worship. And as Leon said, this research was made possible by a vacation scholarship granted by the Carnegie Trust. So with fields outside of theology, such as psychology, education, and music itself, the connection between autism and music has been studied. For example, one example of findings presented by such research include music as a way of developing communication skills, as well as opening up new ways of communication. This is something explored by Adam Oakleford, who talks about music as a way of communication where people are not restricted by words. He also considers music as a way in which autistic individuals can grow in their sense of self. The approach Oakleford has considers music as less of a tool for developing verbal language and more of a vehicle by which autistic people can explore the world and their own identity. If music functions in such a way, it is possible that it has a role in the way autistic Christians experience their spirituality and church. Furthermore, it may be significant in their perception of their identity in both Christian community and themselves. Autism and church is a field which has been considered to an extent. There are many helpful resources which encourage churches to become more inclusive of the autistic community. However, more extended theological reflection is needed. Grant McCaskill does this in his book Autism and the Church, which, although a resource for churches, goes further than addressing a need to be loving and inclusive towards emphasising that autistic people are fundamental to and enrich the church. Whilst other disciplines have recognised the role of music for autistic individuals and highlighted its importance, theological research into autism is an emerging topic, and so there are vast conversations still to be had. With music having such an important role in both the life of autistic individuals and church worship, there is scope to consider the role of music for autistic people in public worship. And if you can change the slide, Leon, that would be great. So in order to explore this, we sought accounts from autistic individuals collected through semi-structured interviews. Using open-ended questions, we asked their responses to various kinds of music in church. For example, how music helps the participants to communicate with God, and if a person prefers a certain volume or style of music during church worship. Furthermore, we hope to find out ways in which the participants use worship to engage with their spirituality. This isn't a comparative study. The aim was to explore the role of music for a specific group of people, autistic worshippers in church. The point is not to single out what is unique to autistic worshippers, which means that some of the findings may resonate with non-autistic individuals as well. So 10 autistic individuals who attend church or have previously attended church were interviewed. The table you see on the screen shows their anonymised names, ages, and the church movements and denominations they're involved in. Due to COVID-19, the interviews took place over video or phone calls. Could you change the slide, please? So you can see here the three main themes that were drawn from the interviews. These were connectedness, music as an experience of faith, and music as conducive or barrier. All three themes overlap with connectedness, through music having the potential to be both a catalyst and a result of music as an experience of faith. Music is conducive or barrier determines the nature of how music is experienced and how it impacts the former themes. And the next slide, please. So the first theme is connectedness. The participants consider music to be an important mode of connection, whether it be connecting people, ideas, or emotions. As well as this being a strong theme throughout the interviews, this connection element is emphasised within autism studies, as music can be an essential way in which autistic individuals develop connections. Music was expressed by all participants as an important aspect of worship in church. Part of the interview involved an exercise in which the participants ordered 4 aspects of a church service, so music, social time, prayer, and a sermon, from most important to least important. 7 participants out of the 10 placed music as most important, and those who did not still considered it to be important and enjoyable. The reasons for music being placed so highly included music's relationship with the sermon, as well as the connection that it brings with God and the participants' engagement with and enjoyment of the service. The emotion that is connected to music was also highlighted. For example, Sophie feels happy during music in church, and Juliet will often cry if the music is emotive. Although most participants do connect with other aspects of church, the emotional connection to music was greater. These explanations given by the participants for the importance of music all revolve around connection with other aspects of the service and ultimately God. Heaton and Monarskis explore music as a way in which autistic people develop a sense of group identity. A significant element of church is group identity, and so it is possible that music can be part of strengthening this for autistic people. The interviews highlighted that for many participants, music is an important way of uniting the congregation during a worship service. Although Megan prefers attending church from her own home, the majority of participants felt that being with other people is an important aspect of church. As Matthew said, when obviously you're singing one song, it creates a sense that people are singing and we are united as a church. We are united in our belief of Jesus. Matthew later shared that having others around him during music enthuses him because it creates an atmosphere where people spur each other on. Although this aspect of church does come with its challenges for Matthew, as he can get distracted, he enjoys music in the sense that it unites people. Furthermore, Sophie shared that music is a helpful way of sharing about her faith and connecting with others' experiences and feelings. However, it must also be noted that music in church can isolate autistic people. Megan and Andrew find that music can be distressing when it's too loud. Megan has often left a church service to go into a different room as she's felt overwhelmed by the noise. And in her experience, churches have not always been very accommodating of this. So although music is a way in which participants felt unity within the church, it was not always the case for everyone, as it can cause distress and disconnect. As well as connecting the church community, music was highlighted as a way in which participants can connect with God. Alice, Sophie, and Julia find music has this role as they can focus on elements of music, such as lyrics and structure. Sophie shared in her interview, I quite often find during worship, you kind of forget where you are and you just kind of get lost in the music and just like listen to the words and kind of hear them in your head and you can sing them out. And you can just kind of, I think it's that expression. I personally feel closer to God in that moment. Sophie's experience explains the effect that music has on her engagement with music in the church and provides an idea of why it is something that leads her close to God. Music from many of the participants is also a way of communicating feelings and thoughts to God, where the words are already provided. Alice, Julia, Matthew, Megan, Andrew, John, and Sophie expressed that they use music as part of speaking to and spending more time with God. Julia explained as follows. Music's easier because you don't have to find the words. Someone finds them for you. You're not having to work out what to say. You can almost find what someone else has said, and that links with what you're saying. For Julia, music is a source for her to find words that help her communicate with God. There is a pattern in the interviews of using music as a way of speaking to God and learning about God for the words are given. Music can help these participants express their feelings to God, almost like a prayer. So connectedness is a significant theme which emerged from the interviews. Participants find that music can influence how the rest of the service is experienced and develop a connection with the congregation. Although this influence is usually positive, it can at times be negative. Furthermore, music is a way in which people connect and communicate with God, as words are provided or not needed at all. And if we can get the next slide, please. The second theme from the interviews was music as experience of faith. Music is not only an aid for people to experience faith, but it can in itself be an experience of faith. This can be related to connectedness if it leads to or from a point of connection, or it can be an entirely different experience of faith. Music is closely linked with the experience of faith for all those who were interviewed. Mary shared that during a Christian festival, she experienced God for the first time. She shared, "It was the kind of first ever experience that I had with God, and was like, wow, this is real. Something is going on here that I need to know more about." So that was kind of my first experience with it. And I definitely feel that worship is important for my relationship with the Lord. I think the biggest thing it does for me is it just brings me to a place where I remind myself of who I am in God's eyes. Mary, along with others, presented music as something inherent to her experience of faith. It is an element of worship which ignites connection and emotion. Similarly, music is an important experience of faith for Julia. Julia will dance during music in church, and this is a way in which she engages and communicates with God. When she is unable to dance, and for example, if the music feels wrong to her, she will not engage so much with the rest of the service, as it is such an integral part of her experience of faith. The experience of faith within music was also related to lyrics for many participants. This is the case particularly if the lyrics of a song related to or revealed more about their faith. Alice, Mary, and Megan find that lyrics are a way of discovering more about God and can be a reminder of God's love. Megan talks about the song Pieces as she finds it has this role. She shared, "The song builds and it gets very like, your love is not broken, your love is not, you don't give your heart in pieces." Yeah, it's just really, it's amazing. And it always makes me feel like really, it's like a reminder of like, this is what God's love is. It's not, his love is not human love. It's different. The lyrics of this song allow Megan to explore and be reminded of God's love. Furthermore, the way the song builds is part of this experience for her. Both the lyrics and the structure of the song have a role in her faith. Music in church was also highlighted as something that pleases God. Matthew expressed the importance of worshipping God through music, regardless of personal feelings and situations. Similarly, Mike shared that he thinks God likes to be worshipped by music. A particularly interesting statement came from Tom, who shared that music is for God's joy. During Tom's interview, he was often prompted by his guardian, who was present, or he was unsure of his answers. However, when he shared this statement, he was certain and clear. Although other participants may have shared this belief, for Matthew, Mike, and Tom, it was a primary role of music. These comments contradict the common perception that autistic individuals can be unaware of others' emotions and needs. As Buston and Swinton discuss, autism is frequently suggested to mean that a person is incapable of loving or having a relationship with God and others. As these participants express, they participate in music not only because it's something that they enjoy, but because it pleases God. Within a church setting, it is so important to recognise that an autistic individual is more than capable of loving and worshipping God, and that music is a way in which they can express this. Furthermore, this emphasis on music being pleasing to God provides space for considering the reason for worshipping God through music. These accounts centre worship on God. Rather than viewing autism as problematic, these participants provide examples of autistic interpretations of music which can be so beneficial to the church. So music is more than a vehicle by which the participants experience faith. It is in itself inherent to their experience of faith. This role is expressed through the perception of lyrics and structural elements of the song. More so than having an important role individually, music was expressed as being a way of worship and pleasing God. And if we can go on to the next slide. The third theme is music as conducive or barrier. The interviews revealed that before people connect to God through music, several factors come into play, which lead to music either being conducive or a barrier. The result of these factors influences how the participants experience music. Although each autistic individual has a different experience, there were clear trends throughout the interviews regarding sensory aspects and their experience of music. Alice, Andrew, John, Julia, Megan, Mike, and Sophie sometimes dislike it if music is too loud. However, Julia and Megan also don't like it if it's too quiet. Julia shared that she needs music to be loud enough that it is the main thing, so that she can engage with it. Similarly, Megan finds it overwhelming when she can hear loud children over music, so she does prefer a higher volume. However, this can also be just as overwhelming, and as I mentioned before, Megan will often leave a church service if she's feeling overwhelmed. So although it is evident that music has an important role for autistic people in church, it can also be a barrier to full engagement and determine the extent to which connection is felt. Music seems to be processed in a unique way for some autistic people. Sophie believes that due to her autism, she processes music in a different way to spoken words. She shared that rather than having to think up what is being said, the music will click. She described that she feels the music and the words in her heart and her body rather than in her mind. Her comments on feeling the words emphasise the important role that music has to play in her experience of faith. Unlike listening to a sermon, during music, she doesn't need to be conscious of feeling overwhelmed. Sophie is very vocal about her autism impacting her life positively, and how she experiences music is one example of this. For her, music can be more of a natural way of participating in worship and connecting with God. How she processes music is conducive to her experience of church and faith, and this aspect of her autism is not a limitation. Others similarly interpret music in a unique way. Mike, Matthew, and Alice show that during music, they will visualise certain aspects of the music. Matthew will often see pictures and paint images when he listens to music. These are often parables of Jesus. He gets these pictures more when he enjoys worship in church. Alice will visualise the music in waves, dots, and clouds, depending on sounds within the song. She uses the song Reckless Love to describe this. For example, in Reckless Love, I only see the chorus as rolling waves because the O there is higher and louder, and the following overwhelming has more emphasis on over and then pulls back on whelming. Then they give more emphasis to never than ending. The notes sort of follow that pattern. Say the highest note is the number 1. It goes 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, because the notes sort of pull up at the end and re-establish a kind of tension. This to me is like 3 consecutive waves with the third one fizzling out. This happens for Alice during music that she connects with, and she's not sure if she sees these things because she connects with music or connects with the music because she sees these things. When she speaks of this, she refers to it as a gift from God, that she is able to see things so visually. Along a similar vein, Mike will visualize the sheet music when he listens to music. He shared, "If I'm concentrating or with my eyes closed, I can picture them. I can picture the sheet music, even though I've not seen it. And the different parts as well. I can almost see the notes going up and down in front of my eyes." Like Sophie, Julia, and Alice, this is an important aspect of music and his autism that he appreciates and enjoys. It was hard to miss the smile on Mike's face when he shared his experience. Although others without autism might share these experiences of visualizing things when they listen to music, it is evident that these visualizations are a common trait for autistic people. The way in which these individuals experience the world and aspects of the music is not restricted by autism, but enhanced. Therefore, it can be said that music in church is a way in which autistic people are experiencing God and spirituality in a very real and personal way. It is no surprise that something as emotive as music is closely linked to emotion and mood. Mike, Julia, Mary, and Megan find that music can transform their moods and lead them into a mindset of worship. This was not necessarily by the actions of the individual, but rather an immediate reaction to music. Megan shared that you go straight into a moment, a feeling. Mary similarly shared that leads her into a readiness to hear the rest of the service. Music is therefore a way in which these participants open themselves up to the spiritual aspects of church. However, music can also have the opposite effect. For example, Mike shared that if the music doesn't cultivate a feeling in the congregation, this can be off-putting for him. So although some aspects of music in church can be unhelpful for autistic individuals, as a whole, music has a significant role in their experience of church and faith. These experiences show that music is not just a way of helping autistic people to have some sort of normal experience of God and church. For these participants, music is a way in which their autistic characteristics are not impairments, but rather open them up to spirituality and faith experiences. And if we can just go on to the final slide. So when we consider these three themes, connectedness, music as an experience of faith, and music as conducive or a barrier, what can be said theologically? All participants consider music to be important to their spirituality and experience of church. Although music can at times be a negative experience for some participants, the findings strongly suggest that the role of music in church is on the most part a positive one for autistic individuals involved in this study. Music also provides a medium for talking to God. The participants communicate with God through music, and this goes beyond something which is enjoyable. It is an experience of faith by which they can express their thoughts and feelings to God. Studies show that music helps autistic individuals to communicate verbally. Moreover, as it is seen from the participants of this study, it can be the case that music is in itself a communication. Oakoford describes the role of music as opening up a new way of communication that is not restricted by words. This is seen with Julia, Megan, Alice, Matthew, and Sophie, among others, where music helps them to communicate with God. Various participants express that music is a helpful way of communicating, as they do not need to come up with the words to say. Some autistic people have limited speech or are nonverbal, and so music provides a way of communication with God that can be more natural than spoken words. The unique processing of music was a recurring theme within the interviews of various participants. These responses to music are ways in which faith is experienced and expressed. Mike, Alice, Julia, and Matthew have extremely visual experiences when they listen to music. Held et al. Discusses that spirituality might manifest in many diverse ways that may be unexpected, for example, through rhythm or touch. This is seen through these visualizations of music. Alice, Mike, and Julia visualize music in the form of dance, abstract images, and sheet music, and although this is not explicitly spiritual, it often occurs for them during church worship. Christoph Schobel comments that Martin Luther considered music, both with words and without, to have the ability to share truths about God and faith. Along a similar vein, he presents the view that listening to Bach's music can lead a person closer to God. Therefore, it is possible that the way in which these participants experience music, even if it appears abstract, is a way of experiencing and expressing faith. Alice and Julia share this view themselves. The participants find these unique ways of processing music enjoyable, and they do not see it as a negative result of their autism. Within the context of church, positive aspects of autism such as these need to be recognised. A recognition of this goes further than inclusivity. It may lead to new perspectives of how faith can be experienced through music. For example, Julia's dancing is a unique experience and expression of her faith that embodies the worship music. And from what she shared, this seems to encourage others within her church. These participants highlighted the important role of music for autistic individuals, as well as the positives that autistic people bring to the Christian community through music. McCaskill discusses that within the body of Christ, value is not ascribed in response to the contribution a person is expected to make to a community. An autistic person might enrich the Christian community in unexpected ways, and this study is one example of this. Music evidently does come with its challenges for autistic individuals and the community that they are part of. However, the benefits are so vast. The participants bring alternative ways of experiencing music, as well as conveying the impact that music can have on emotion and connection with God and others. As is emphasised in McCaskill's work, the autistic community have a great deal to contribute to the church, and music is a way in which this is made evident. The accounts given by these individuals are beneficial for developing an understanding of ways in which faith is experienced through music. They're not only beneficial in the conversation of autism within the church, but also how the church worships and experiences God as a whole. So this study has shown that music has an important role for many autistic individuals and their experience of public worship. The importance is rooted in connection and communication with God and others, and is an experience of faith for many. Although music is not received positively at all times by every individual, for example, if it's too loud, the positive role it plays is still apparent for all participants in this study, and it is an essential element of autistic worship. The participants involved express incredible experience of music in church, such as the ability to conduce connection, visualization, and mood and emotion. And not only does music help with these things, but it creates them. Therefore, music is not simply a way in which the autistic community can be helped, but a way in which they can thrive within the church and within their own faith. Furthermore, a great deal can be learned from these individuals of how their autistic experience of how other autistic people might experience music. And moreover, the worship of autistic members of the community, sometimes in their unique ways, enriches the worship of the entire church as it brings glory to God.